Good day to you. My name is Kevin Lee Vaughn Jr. Today is Saturday, May 9th, 2015, 2:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to read to you the Willie Lynch letter, The Making of a Slave. This speech was delivered by Willie Lynch on the bank of the James River in the colony of Virginia in 1712. Lynch was a British slave owner in the West Indies. He was invited to the colony of Virginia in 1712 to teach his methods to slave owners there. The term lynching is derived from his last name. Greetings, gentlemen. I greet you here on the bank of the James River in the year of our Lord 1712. First, I shall thank you, the gentlemen of the colony of Virginia, for bringing me here. I am here to help you solve some of your problems with slaves. Your invitation reached me on the modest plantation in the West Indies, where I have experimented with some of the newest and still the oldest methods for control of slaves. Ancient Rome will envy us if my program is implemented. As our boat sailed south on the James River, named for our illustrious king, whose version of the Bible we cherish, I saw enough to know that your problem is not unique. While Rome used cords of wood as crosses for standing enough to know While Rome used cords of wood as crosses for standing human bodies along its highways in a great number, you are here using the tree and the rope on occasions. I caught the whiff of a dead slave hanging from a tree a couple miles back. You are not only losing valuable stock by hangings, you are having uprisings. Slaves are running away. Your crops are sometimes left in the fields too long for maximum profit. You suffer occasional fires. Your animals are killed. Gentlemen, you know what your problems are. I do not need to elaborate. I am not here to enumerate your problems. I am here to introduce you to a method of solving them. In my bag here, I have a foolproof method for controlling your black slave. I guarantee every one of you that if installed correctly, it will control the slaves for at least 300 years. My method is simple. Any member of your family or your overseer can use it. I have outlined a number of differences among the slaves, and I take these differences and make them bigger. I use fear, distrust, and envy for control purposes. These methods have worked on my modest plantation in the West Indies, and it will work throughout the South. Take this simple little list of differences and think about them. On top of my list is age, but it's there only because it starts with an A. The second is color or shade. There is intelligence, size, sex, sizes of plantation, status on plantations, attitude of owners. Whether the slave live in the valley, on a hill, east, west, north, south, have fine hair, coarse hair, or is tall or short. Now that you have a list of differences, I shall give you an outline of action. But before that, I shall assure you that distrust is stronger than trust and envy, stronger than adulation, respect, or admiration. The black slaves, after receiving this indoctrination, shall carry on and will become self-refueling and self-generated for hundreds of years, maybe thousands. Don't forget, you must pitch the old black male versus the young black male, and the young black male against the old black male. You must use the dark-skinned slave versus the light-skinned slave, and the light-skinned slave versus the dark-skinned slave. You must use the female versus the male, and the male versus the female. You must also have white servants and overseers who distrust all blacks. But it is necessary that your slaves trust and depend on us. They must love, respect, and trust us only. Gentlemen, these kits are your keys to control. Use them. Have your wives and children use them. Never miss an opportunity. If used intentionally for 1 year, the slaves themselves will remain perpetually distrustful. Thank you, gentlemen. Let's make a slave. It was the interest and business of slaveholders to study human nature, and the slave nature in particular, with a view to practical results. I and many of them attained astonishing proficiency in the direction. They had no idea, not with earth, wood, and stone, but with men, and by every regard they had for their own safety and prosperity. They needed to know the material on which they were to work. Conscious of the injustice and wrong, they were every hour perpetuating and knowing what they themselves would do. Were they the victims of such wrongs? They were constantly looking for the first sign of the dreaded retribution. They watched, therefore, with skilled and practiced eyes, and learned to read great accuracy the state of mind and the heart of the slave through his stable face, unusual sobriety, apparent abstraction, sullenness, and indifference. Indeed, any move out of the common was afforded ground for suspicion and inquiry. Frederick Douglass, Let's Make a Slave, is a study of the scientific process of man breaking and slave making. It describes the rationale and results of the Anglo-Saxons' ideal and methods of ensuring the master-slave relationship. Let's Make a Slave, the original and development of a social being called the Negro. Let us make a slave. What do we need? First of all, we need a black nigger. First of all, we need a black nigger man, a pregnant nigger woman, and a baby nigger boy. Second, we will use the same basic principle that we use in breaking a horse, combined with some more sustaining factors. What we do with horses is that we break them from one form of life to another. That is, we reduce them from their natural state in nature, whereas nature provides them with the natural capacity to take care of their offspring. We break that natural string of independence from them and thereby create a dependency status so that we may be able to get from them useful production for our business and pleasure. Cardinal principles for making a Negro. For fear that our future generations may not understand the principles of breaking both the beasts together, the nigger, and the horse. We understand that short-range planning economics results in periodic economic chaos, so that to avoid turmoil in the economy, it requires us to have breadth and depth and long-range comprehensive planning, articulating both skills, sharp perceptions. We lay down the following principles for the long-range comprehensive economic planning. Both horse and niggers are no good to the economy in the wild or natural state. Both must be broken and tied together for orderly production, for orderly future. Special and particular attention must be paid to the female and the youngest offspring. Both must be crossbred to produce a variety and division of labor. Both must be taught and respond to a peculiar new language. Psychological and physical instruction of containment must be created for both. We hold the 6 cardinal principles as true to be self-evident based upon following the discourse concerning the economics of breaking and tying the horse and the nigger together, all inclusive of the 6 principles laid down above. Note, neither principle alone suffice for good economics. All principles must be employed for orderly good of the nation. Accordingly, both a wild horse and a wild or natural nigger is dangerous even if captured, for they have the tendency to seek their customary freedom, and in doing so might kill you in your sleep. You cannot rest. They sleep while you are awake, and are awake while you are asleep. They are dangerous near the family house, and it requires too much labor to watch them away from the house. Above all, you cannot get them to work in this natural state. Hence, both the horse and the nigger must be broken. That is, breaking them from one form of mental life to another. Keep the body, take the mind. In other words, break the will to resist. Now, the breaking process is the same for both the horse and the nigger, only slightly varying in degrees. But as we said before, there is an art in long-range economic planning. You must keep your eye and thoughts on the female and the offspring of the horse and the nigger. A brief discourse in offspring development will shed light on the key to sound economic principles. Pay little attention to the generation of original breaking, but concentrate on future generations. Therefore, if you break the female mother, she will break the offspring in its early years of development. And when the offspring is old enough to work, she will deliver it up to you. For her normal female protective tendencies will have been lost in the original breaking process. For example, take the case of the wild stud horse, a female horse and an already infant horse, and compare the breaking process with two captured nigger males in their natural state. A pregnant nigger woman with her infant offspring. Take the stud horse, break him for limited containment. Completely break the female horse until she becomes very gentle, whereas you or anybody can ride her in her comfort. Breed the mare and the stud until you have the desired offspring. Then you can turn the stud to freedom until you need him again. Train until you have desired offspring. Then you can turn the stud to freedom until you need him again. Train the female horse whereby she will eat out of your hand, and she will train the infant horse to eat of your hand also. When it comes to breaking the uncivilized nigger, use the same process but vary the degree and step up the pressure so as to do a complete reversal. When it comes to breaking the uncivilized nigger, use the same process but vary the degree and step up the pressure so as to do a complete reversal of the mind. Take the meanest and the most restless nigger, strip him of his clothes in front of the remaining male niggers. The female and the nigger infant tar and feather him. Tie each leg to a different horse. Face the opposite direction. Set him afire and beat both horses to pull him apart in front of the remaining niggers. The next step is to take a bullwhip and beat the remaining nigger males to the point of death in front of the female and the infant. Don't kill him, but put the fear of God in him, for he can be useful for the future breeding. My goodness. This is how they think to put the fear of God in somebody. The breaking process of the African woman. Take the female to run a series of tests on her and see if she will submit to your desires willingly. Test her in every way because she is the most important factor for good economics. If she shows any sign of resistance in submitting completely to your will, do not hesitate to use the bullwhip on her to extract that last bit of be out of her. Take care not to kill her, for in doing so you spoil good economics. When in complete submission, she will train her offspring in the early years to submit to labor when they become of age. Understanding is the best thing. Therefore, we shall go deeper into the area of the subject matter concerning what we have produced here in this breaking process of the female nigger. We have reversed the relationship in her natural uncivilized state. She would have a strong dependency on the uncivilized nigger male, and she would have a limited protective tendency toward her independent male offspring, and would raise male offsprings to be dependent like her. Nature had provided for this type of balance. We reversed by nature by burning and pulling a civilized nigger apart and bullwhipping the other to the point of death, all in her presence. By her being left alone, unprotected, with the male image destroyed, the ordeal caused her to move from her psychologically dependent state to a frozen independent state. In this frozen psychological state of independence, she will raise her male and female offspring in reverse roles. For fear of the young male's life, she will psychologically train him to be mentally weak and dependent, but physically strong, because she has become psychologically independent. She will train her female offspring to be psychologically independent. What have you got? You've got the nigger woman out front and the nigger man behind and scared. This is a perfect situation of sound sleep and economics. Before the breaking process, we had to be alert, on guard at all times. Now we can sleep soundly, for out of frozen fear this woman stands guard for us. He cannot get past her early slave molding process. He is a good tool, now ready to be tied to the horse at the tender age. By the time a nigger boy reaches the age of 16, he is soundly broken in and ready for a long life of sound and efficient work, and the reproduction of a unit of good labor force, continually through the breaking and uncivilized savage niggers, by throwing the nigger female savage into a frozen psychological state of independence, by killing the protective male image, and by creating the submissive dependent mind of the nigger male slave. We have created an orbiting cycle that turns on its own axis forever, unless the phenomenon occurs and reshifts the position of the male and female slave. We show what we mean by example. Take the case of the two economic slave units and examine them close. The Negro marriage. We breed two nigger males with two nigger females. Then we take the nigger male away from them and keep them moving and working. Say one nigger female bears a nigger female and the other bears a nigger male. Both nigger females, being without influence of the nigger male image, frozen with an independent psychologically, will raise their offspring into reverse positions. The one with the female offspring will teach her to be like herself, independent and negotiable. We negotiate with her, through her, by her, negotiate her at will. The one with the nigger male offspring, she being frozen subconscious fear for his life, will raise him to be mentally dependent and weak, but physically strong. In other words, body over mind. Now in a few years, when these two offsprings become fertile for the early reproduction, we will mate and breed them and continue the cycle. That is good, sound, and long-range comprehensive planning. Warning: possible interloping negatives. Earlier we talked about the non-economic good of the horse and the nigger in the wild or natural state. We talked about the principle of breaking and tying them together for orderly production. Furthermore, we talked about paying particular attention to the female savage and her offspring for orderly future planning. Then more recently, we stated that by reversing the position of the male and female savages, recreated an orbiting cycle that turns on its own axis forever, unless a phenomenon occurred and reshift positions of the male and female savages. Our experts warned us about the possibility of this phenomenon occurring, for they say that the mind has a strong drive to correct and recorrect itself over a period of time if it can touch some substantial original historical base. And they advised us that the best way to deal with the phenomenon is to shave off the brute's mental history and create a multiplicity of phenomena of illusions. So multiplicity of phenomena of illusion entails the principle of crossbreeding, the nigger and the horse, as we stated above, the purpose of which is to create a diversified division of labor, therefore creating different levels of severance of the points of original beginnings for each sphere illusion. Since we feel that the subject matter may get more complicated as we proceed in laying down our economic plan concerning the purpose, reason, and effect of crossbreeding horses and niggers, we shall lay down the following definition terms for future generations. Orbiting cycles means a thing turning in a given path. Axis means upon which or around which a body turns. Phenomenon means something beyond ordinary conception and inspires awe and wonder. Multiplicity means a great number, means a globe. Crossbreeding a horse means taking a horse and breeding it with an ass, and you get a dumb, backward ass, long-headed mule that is not reproductive nor productive by itself. Crossbreeding niggers mean taking so many drops of good white blood and putting them into as many nigger women as possible, varying the drops by the various tone that you want, and then letting them breed with each other until another circle of color appears as you desire. What this means is this: put the nigger and the horse in a breeding pot, mix some asses and some good white blood, and what do you get? You got a multiplicity of colors of ass backward unusual niggers running, tied to back. Oh my God. You got a multiplicity of colors of ass backward unusual niggers running, tied to backward ass, long-headed men. Long-headed mules. Jesus have mercy. The one productive of itself, the other sterile. The one constant, the other dying. We keep the nigger constant, for we may replace the mules for another two, both mule and nigger tied to each other, neither knowing where the other came from, and neither productive for itself, nor without each other. That's powerful. Mm-hmm. This is the sick thinking of human beings. Yep. Human beings. Yeah. Control language. Crossbreeding completed. For further severance from their original beginning, we must completely annihilate the mother tongue of both the new nigger and the new mule and institute a new language that involves the new life's work of both. You know, language is a peculiar institution. It leads to the heart of a people. The more a foreigner knows about the language of another country, the more he is able to move through all levels of that society. Therefore, if the foreigner is an enemy of the country, to the extent that he knows the body of the language, To that extent is the country vulnerable to attack or invasion of a foreign culture. For example, if you take a slave, if you teach him all about your language, he will know all your secrets, and he is then more a slave, for you can't fool him any longer. And being a fool is one of the basic ingredients of any incident to the maintenance of the slavery system. For example, if you told a slave that he must perform in getting out our crops, and he knows that language well, he would know that our crops didn't mean our crops, and the slave system would break down, for he would relate on the basis of what our crops really meant. So you have to be careful in setting up the new language. For the slave would be in your house, talking to you as man to man, and that is deaf to our economic system. In addition, the definitions of the words or terms are only a minute apart of the process. Values are created and transported by communication through the body of the language. A total society has many interconnected value systems. All the values in the society have bridges of language to connect them for orderly working in the society. But for these language bridges, these many value systems would sharply clash and cause internal strife or civil war, the degree of the conflict being determined by the magnitude of the issues of relative opposing strength in whatever form. For example, if you put a slave in a hog pen and train him to live there and incorporate in him to value it as a way of life completely, the biggest problem you would have out of him is that he will worry about your provisions to keep the hog pen clean. Or the same hog pen and make a slip and incorporate something in his language whereby he comes to value a house more than he does his hog pen. You got a problem. He will soon be in your house. Additional notes. Hinton Berry, speaking in the Virginia House of Delegates in 1832, described the situation as it existed in many parts of the South at this time. We have, as far as possible, closed every avenue by which light may enter there, the slave's mind. If we could extinguish the capacity to see the light, our work would be complete. They would then be on a level with the beasts. Be on a level with the beasts of the field, and we should be safe. I am not certain that we would not do it if we could not find out the process, and that on the plea of necessity. From Brown America, The Story of a New Race by Edwin R. Embry, 1931, The Viking Press. Thank you for listening. It's very sad as to how human beings think and behave, but it's the reality. And if we are not aware of these teachings, these methods of slavery, it would just continue to repeat itself. We can no longer be fools and be blinded and say that This is not a reality. It's very a reality. And we have to educate ourselves on it. And it's the only way we can eradicate slavery. God's grace is sufficient.